It's a nail-biter here in Indy.
No OT tonight.
George for the tie! Missed everything.
Several months later.
ESPN's reporting tonight that George is on the move to, get this, Oklahoma City.
Paul George revealed to USA Today his trade from the Pacers to the Thunder felt like a kick in the behind.
A chance to send the Thunder home. Lillard, long-range three, and it's good!
I don't care what anybody says, that's a bad shot.
Many months later.
They are sending to Oklahoma City essentially a record collection of draft picks and outstanding rookie point guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari for Paul George.
I got a bad feeling about this.
They've gotten a number of second shots, though.
George, way off. It's the side of the backboard.
5 years later.
Podcast P fam, welcome back to another episode of Podcast P, a Wave original presented to you by Prize Picks.
How the mighty have fallen. My hero. Final seconds, no fouls to give. Halliburton looking. Halliburton driving, pulls up, jump shot. It's good! It's good! With 0.3 of a second remaining.
Situations like that, I got to get the last shot.
When it comes to the 2025 NBA season, there's a long list of all-stars quality NBA players who either one, didn't show up this season, or failed to live up to the hype many fans had. Guys like John Morant, Zion Williamson, a James Harden in Game 7, or a Julius Randle in the West Finals. All those guys in varying degrees, underwhelmed in some respect. But looking at the most disappointing, embarrassing season this year, that belongs to Paul George. As when it comes to George, he's a mess across the board. As looking at the numbers, scoring, efficiency, games played, it was all down this season. And worst of all, his contract is 4 years, $212 million.
I'm only burning my half. All you care about is money.
Much like a Bradley Beal, Paul George this season was highly inconsistent, highly erratic, at the end of the day, kind of just quit on his team. And again, like a Bradley Beal, has terrible injury luck, is overpaid, and just really past his prime. Now, the one separator for Paul George who makes him the king of all clowns is his podcast.
But before we wrap, fellas, it's no secret this season is up to this point, man, it hasn't been what we envisioned.
Grimes back to George. His response, not there.
45-44 Sixers. George signed up on the baseline. Skips it.
I know my goal when I first signed with Philadelphia was to bring a championship to these amazing fans here.
You serious?
After today's episode with Dwight, I plan to take a break from the pod just to focus on getting my body right, getting mentally right, and, help this squad make a push.
Paved Yabusele's way back to the NBA as George, wow.
If you grew up in the 2010s, someone like Paul George, he was a marquee star and up-and-comer, a legit guy in the NBA. Now in his mid-30s, he's a C-tier podcaster who occasionally plays basketball. The downfall of Paul George for younger NBA players is going to be studied to the end of time. Because how do you go from a legit all-star 1 year in Los Angeles to the next year in Philadelphia, the laughingstock of the NBA, getting clowned by every fan base? If Adam Silver wants to avoid an NBA that has tons of Paul Georges, there has to be some kind of PG podcast P clause in a contract where you can't podcast more than 25 times a season. If you go over that limit, your contract is null and void on the spot. The team can cut you.
Get out! Out!
Now, looking past the Paul George jokes right now, it is early June, the finals are starting, and Paul George isn't on anyone's radar because 1, he isn't playing, and 2, there's bigger fish to fry. But looking at this year's finals matchup, the two teams we got, the OKC Thunder and Indiana Pacers. If I'm Paul George right now in a lose-lose scenario, you gotta think long and hard, who do I want to win more, Indiana or the Thunder? It's a very tough choice, but either way, Paul George is a massive loser coming out of this year's finals. As in large part due to Paul George jumping ship demanding trades, he built 2 finals teams in the record he left in. As looking back at 2017, when he asked out of Indiana, what did they get in return? Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis. Hindsight being 2020, that trade for the Pacers was absolutely brilliant. What they did after that made it an all-time parlay. As taking that Sabonis asset, what they turned it into? Tyrese Halliburton, a franchise cornerstone and marquee point guard.
Wait a minute. How did this happen? We're smarter than this. Apparently not.
If you're Paul George right now, do you really want Indiana to win? If Tyrese gets the championship, delivers Indiana their first ring ever, I mean, he's vaulted into all-time Pacers status. And for Paul George, you're kind of a footnote in-between player between the Reggie era and the Tyrese era. And again, talking legacy, Halliburton this postseason alone has had more clutch shots, more big moments than PG ever had.
5 seconds, 4 seconds, Halliburton for the lead. Carlisle's gonna let him play. Halliburton steps back and hits.
He'll take it. He'll backpedal a 3 for the win and
Now, looking at the Western Conference, the OKC Thunder, another team Paul George helped build, this one might be worse. As Paul George going to the Clippers, what he got OKC back in return was, of course, SGA, a better player than Paul George ever was, but also had them a ton of draft picks, including Jalen Williams, who in his own right is an all-star with an extremely bright future. That trade right there on paper, even if OKC didn't win a championship, one of the biggest robberies, lopsided trades we've ever seen. And yes, I do understand it. The Clippers wanted Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. It was kind of a 2-for-1 deal. But in hindsight, this trade just looks even worse. And again, talking Paul George's legacy, what this dude did inadvertently was fund two teams that make the finals when he was still actively playing.
Embarrassing!
One of the more embarrassing things for any NBA player is a team without them being successful and thriving once they're gone. For the Thunder in the Paul George era, they disappointed 2 straight years and went out in embarrassing fashion. As in the PG, Melo, Russ type era, their combined playoff record was 3-8 with 2 first-round exits.
Adams hustling, kept it alive to Felton. George for the tie. Paul George got Gobert up in the air, didn't get the foul call.
Ball game.
And looking at George in Indy, his biggest accomplishment, biggest feat was making 2 East Finals. Tyrese, just the past 2 years, has already accomplished that and gone further this year by making the NBA Finals. Long story short, Paul George right now is in the worst spot imaginable for a so-called NBA star, and the 2 teams he left are thriving in his absence.
It's gotta hurt.
And one larger point I do want to make very quickly, when it comes to the Clippers, the 76ers, and of course Paul George, there's one big takeaway in all this. To win an NBA championship, you can't skip steps and cheat the game. As looking at OKC's roster, all the players they have on their core right now were either one drafted or acquired through a trade. And looking at those trades, it's not like SJ and the Clippers, he asked out, he wanted to leave. He was collateral for Paul George, wanted to leave Oklahoma City. So this team being built top to bottom, it's one of the more ethical championship teams in an era of super teams, big threes, and collusion. In a lot of ways, this Oklahoma City team is anti-Paul George, anti his career. As every choice Paul George has made, this team had done the exact opposite. And looking at Indiana's roster, their top 8 players, all the guys were acquired through trades or great draft picks. Guys like Pascal and Halliburton through trades, fleecing teams. Smaller pieces like Mathurin and Ben Shepherd, quality draft picks who've been big-time pieces off the bench in his finals run. So that right there is the end of the video, and I'll say one last thing. When it comes to the podcast piece storyline in the finals, it may not be the most important thing about the finals, but it is most intriguing. As looking at a player's legacy, having 2 teams they played for, having left those teams, then them rebuilding, getting better, making the finals, playing each other, the odds of that happening are 1 in a million. Where PG right now, he's in a lose-lose scenario. Indiana wins that 2017 trade demand, that was a spark for their championship and their finals run. The Thunder win that SGA trade goes down as one of the worst trades in NBA history that gave birth to a future dynasty. Whichever way you slice it, Paul George is losing in this year's finals. As always, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.